Hello, friends. Today is 23rd March 2025, and I'm continuing with the discussion on introducing DGPSI, the Data Governance and Protection Standard of India, which we refer as the crown jewel of data protection, implementation, and audit frameworks, particularly in the context of DPDPA 2023 in India. Yesterday, in Naavi.org and later in another article today, I tried to explain the requirement of information security professionals to extend their current, let us say, the framework of ISMS from the well-known CIA concept to a modified CIA concept and further supplement it with additional parameters related to preservation of the value of data so that the framework currently known as CIA will be able to address the requirements of the personal data protection if it is henceforth called CIA modified plus value V, CIA V, or something of that nature. The idea there was that the concept of confidentiality, concept of integrity and availability as we use in the ISMS concept needs to be slightly modified if you have to look at that application for personal data. Confidentiality of personal data is different from confidentiality of non-personal data. The reason is the protection or preservation of confidentiality of non-personal data is being done under ISMS for the benefit of the organization, whereas the confidentiality of personal data as per data protection laws need to be carried out or for the purpose of protecting the data principle. Protecting the interest of data principle is also in the interest of the organization, because not protecting the interest of data principle essentially means that there could be a penalty, and therefore the preservation of the value of the organization itself gets eroded. That is why I wanted to call that CIA concept as outdated, and it needs to be extended to mod CIA V and V. Okay. In fact, DGPSI as a framework already supports this view that the framework should not only look at confidentiality, integrity, and availability of personal data, but it should also look at authentication of personal data. It should also look at governance mechanisms which meet the requirement of compliance and so on. So therefore, DGPSI is already prepared to meet the requirements of the personal data protection under this modified CIA concept. This was discussed earlier in my book, Guardians of Privacy. Okay. If you look at this book, which is also available through Naavi.org, in page 210, we have provided a kind of say grid, or I called it as a personal data protection septagon. Okay. And here we have identified that information security needs to be considered as an aggregation of these different principles, which is not only CIA, but also authentication, governance, compliance. Okay. And because of these extensions of the uh, requirements, the current frameworks which adopt only to the CIA concept are inadequate. We need to look at new frameworks, and DGPSI is one such framework. In a way, I sometimes often compare this situation like selecting a cricketer for a T20 team vis-a-vis, say, test team. And also, when over a period of time, there is a normal erosion of capability of a star player, so that a new player is sometimes better than the earlier star player. So whether it is Sunil Gavaskar or it is even Sachin Tendulkar, maybe if I am selecting a team for T20 today, I would bypass both of them and look for somebody else. This does not mean that either Sunil Gavaskar or Sachin Tendulkar were anyway inferior to the current person whom I am choosing over and above them in the current team. But it's a recognition that things have moved. The object also has become different. Okay. So therefore, a team which would have been proud to have Sunil Gavaskar or Sachin Tendulkar today would not be so happy, and they would like to have some other newer player. Same way, in the compliance, those of you who have been working in the area of ISO may always feel ISO 27001 or GDPR framework under 27701 is the ultimate. And recently ISO 27001 has been modified to the 2022 version, and therefore certain things have already been taken into account as far as the privacy is concerned. Yes, to some extent what you say is correct. The ISO framework also has tried to improve on its own. However, if there is a framework like DGPSI, which is specific to DPDPA, it is something which will score over other frameworks. This is the essential acceptance which is required by the professionals. Unless you come with this open mind that let us look at DGPSI as something which can be considered instead of other known frameworks, you will continue to hold the prejudice that ISO is an international framework. My clients prefer me to be ISO certified. If I tell them that I am DGPSI certified, they will not understand. I don't have the capacity to convince them that DGPSI is superior to ISO in that particular context. If that is the current situation, it is time for organizations and professionals to change their perspective. Hopefully, this series will help you to get the essence of DGPSI as a framework which is completely focused on DPDPA 2023 and the accompanying rules which go with it. So if you are looking at an organization being compliant to DPDPA 2023, look at the framework DGPSI Lite, which has got 36 model implementation specifications, each one of which is directly related to a section of DPDPA 2023, so that if you are compliant with that model implementation specification, you are compliant with that particular section. And through this 36 implementation specifications, you will be compliant with DPDPA as a whole. Of course, when you go into the details, you will understand that to be compliant with a particular section, you need to perhaps do some preparatory steps, and therefore the compliance requires certain technology requirements such as classification of data, tagging of data, and so on. But they're all embedded into the individual implementation specifications, so that we can confidently say that if we map our compliance to these 36 implementation specifications of DGPSI Lite version, we are compliant with DPDPA. There is another larger version called DGPSI Full version, which incorporates certain best governance practices, which will help an organization to be simultaneously compliant with Information Technology Act 2000, maybe the Consumer Protection Act 2019, maybe the Telecom Act, maybe the BNS, the Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita, and some governance requirements which the BSI, the Bureau of Indian Standard, BIS, the Bureau of Indian Standards, would like organizations to consider when they are into governance of data. So therefore, between this DGPSI Lite and DGPSI Full, there are two versions of DGPSI which will help you to be compliant with the requirements of DPDPA. Both these versions are backed by what we call as DGPSI principles. There are 12 principles. If you want, you can look at these 12 principles as standards and these 36 or 50 implementation specifications as the detailed guidance for implementation. We have not used the exact word as standard, but we have used it as DGPSI principles. So as we go further into the next set of videos, we will try to explain what are the 12 DGPSI principles, and maybe we will go into the details of the DGPSI Lite and some essential aspects of DGPSI Full over a series of videos. And hopefully over the next 2 months, we will be able to have some 40-50 videos of short duration, which will together make a library of videos towards DGPSI. We have claimed that DGPSI is an open source framework, and probably when these videos become part of the public domain, we will be serving that objective of placing the DGPSI as an open source framework. Consultants who will be working under DGPSI need to convert the model implementation specifications into context-related templates, because we as an organization promoting the framework would not like to get into the development of actual templates, because that is the work of the DGPSI consultants. So we will explain in these videos the general principles of DGPSI and the implementation specifications. And from there, consultants need to develop their own templates. And that way, the community of data fiduciaries in India will have the services of many DGPSI consultants who, with their own innovative approach and to the bringing the compliance to the context, will be able to give a more workable solutions to data fiduciaries for implementation. So we will try to close this session with an understanding that DGPSI principles along with the model implementation specifications serve the purpose of providing guidance to organizations for DPDPA compliance. And we hope that the title Crown Jewel of Frameworks will be something which you would start appreciating as we go further. Thank you.